The number one survival tool that you need more than any other is your mindset. It does not matter how much gear that you have, how many survival kits that you have, how much training that you've been through. If you do not have the proper mindset when you are in a traumatic situation, you're not going to make it. You have to have that mindset and that will to survive. We've had a lot of violent storms. There's been, with the hurricane, there's been a huge loss of life. There's been a lot of damage, countless people without their homes, lost power, and just a terrible situation. And the folks that are doing the best are the ones that have basically decided that they're not going to give up. If you give up mentally, then you have no chance. That is all there is to it. Regardless of the situation, if you do not have the proper mindset, you're not going to make it. Okay, you need to build your mindset. You need to think about the situations that you could be in. You need to plan mentally for what you would do with any kind of a situation that you could find yourself in. What would you do if you were caught in a storm? If your home was destroyed, the way that we'd seen over in Appalachia, down in eastern Tennessee, over in the Carolinas, what would you do? What thoughts would you have? Those are critical things that you should be thinking about now. People that live down in the Gulf, what happens when a hurricane comes in? There's a lot that can happen, and it's not just these major storms. If you are caught in a situation, for example, if you live in the inner cities with all of the rioting and things like that we've seen back in 2020 and even since then, what would you do if you happen to be in the middle of one of those? If something happened, if you were driving, if you were on a bus, taking some kind of a public transportation, and it pulled into an area where one of these, these riots is happening, what would you do? Would you know what to do to protect yourself? Would you be able to get out of that situation? Those are things that you should think about. Incidents like those described can happen to anyone. You never know when it's going to happen. Your mindset, not just the tools that you have with you, are going to be what determines whether you make it or not. When you're faced with danger, your brain kicks into high gear with a fight or flight mentality. You get an adrenaline dump. That adrenaline is going to affect you in ways that you can't really describe until you're in one of those situations. It's going to make you hyper-focus. It's going to make you lose fine motor control. That's something that I talk about in a lot of my concealed carry classes, why we use big motions with large muscle groups, because those fine tasks, those precise tasks, are going to be much harder because of the loss of your fine motor control due to the adrenaline. We've got to be cautious, though, because there are some mental traps that can lead you astray, that can cause you to have problems, that can cause you to make mistakes. One of those is an overconfidence. I don't care how much training that you've been through. Yes, you want a certain amount of confidence, but when training kicks in, when the reality of the situation that you are in kicks in and becomes real to you, there's going to be elements in that situation that cannot be replicated in any kind of training that you do. Those are the hardest things to plan for. We do training, we do various trainings to try to build up that preparedness, to give people the skills for what they need to be able to survive a situation, to know what to do, but at the same time, there are certain things that cannot be replicated in that training, any type of training that you do. The adrenaline, you cannot replicate that in training. When you have a situation to where if someone is injured, and there again, in training, you can replicate those things, but in the real world, it is a complete different reality. Talk to an EMT, talk to some of these police officers, any first responder that has had to respond where someone has been injured, whether it's a car wreck, whether it is an act of violence, And they'll tell you flat out that it is a completely different world when you're in training compared to what it is in reality. Just a story to go along with this. Back many years ago when I was a kid, I may have been 12, 13 years old, out squirrel hunting over where we lived at. And of course, it was on the other side of the county, an extremely wooded area, very rural area, and you just did not see a lot of people in and out of that area other than people that live there, just because it is so rural. Back where I was hunting at, when you get so far back into the woods, everything looks the same. People that are familiar with that area know that this happens. They know the area. They're familiar with it. But people that are unfamiliar with it do not need to go in there. And oftentimes they don't unless they're with someone, because of the simple fact that it is easy to get lost in some of these wooded areas. So I was back there squirrel hunting, and I got lost. Basically, I could not tell where I was at. Everything looked the same, but I did not panic. And this is a minor situation, but it's going to lead me to something more important that I wanted to talk about. In that situation, what I did is that I remembered what I had been taught as a kid growing up. And that was simply to stand still and to listen. Because even though I was way back in the woods, sound in that area traveled. And what I could hear was occasionally a car driving by on the road. So once I heard a car, once I could tell that there was traffic in a certain direction, I simply started moving in that direction. Panic at this time would not have done me any good. There was no such thing as a cell phone then, Gen X, old guy now. That was something that we did not have. I'm back in the woods and even down in that area now, and it's not been that long since I drove through there. You don't get a cell signal down there. That's just how far it is back in the woods. So what I did, I just got quiet, I got calm, and I listened. And eventually a car drove down the road. I could tell the direction that it was in, and I just started moving in that direction. And I kept moving in that direction until I came to that road. And once I got to that road, I knew where I was, and I was able to get right back home. Panic in that situation would have done me no good. And that's bringing me to another point. And that point is this: if you have kids, get them out, take them camping, put them in situations to where they have to think their way through. There's going to be times in life that they're going to have to think their way through situations. Do it in a controlled environment to where you can guide them, compared to what it is when they get into the real world and they don't know what to do and there's no one there to guide them. Okay, that's something every parent should do. But in order for a parent to do that, they need to know how to do it themselves. Some of the things you can do to help train yourself to have the proper mindset is simply start with small tasks. Some of the things that we know happens: storms, tornadoes. We talked about that before. In the event of something like that happening, people will often lose power. What do you do when the power goes out? Now, I know that there are folks out there that have generators. There's a lot of other folks out there that do not. At the same time, the people that have generators, something can go wrong with those generators. Take the time to put yourself in a controlled situation to where you can think these processes through. Shut the power off to your house. What would you do? Simply go to your breaker panel, shut that breaker off, and work your way through that. Make it a game to where you can teach your kids what they should be able to do, whether it's using candles, how to be safe with them, how would you prepare food if it's something that's going to last for several days, and build that mindset and ingrain in them as well as yourself the steps that you know you need to take, that in the event of it actually happening, you're going to be better prepared. Okay, if there's something that you don't have, some kind of a tool, then that's at the time that you know that you need to get it. Okay, it's a simple process of putting yourself in controlled situations to where you can build the skills, build the thought processes that you need to get through those situations. Now, I want to bring it back to where we was when we started, and that is mindset. Having the proper thought processes, having the mental perspective on things to where you don't give up, to where you know that in order to get through whatever situation you're in, that there is a specific set of steps that you need to take. If you're overcome with panic, if you are overcome with emotion, it's going to be much harder for you to do what you need to do. You need to think through those processes. If you look to the people that do not make it when tragic things happen, you're going to see in many cases, but not all, you're going to see that a lot of those people did not have that proper mindset. They did not take any kind of steps of preparation as far as preparing themselves mentally for facing that situation. You know, we see people that get lost in the woods that after a few hours, they're gone, unfortunately. They just can't, they just give up. They don't know what to do. They lose hope, and that's it. They just give up. They just lay down and wait for something bad to happen. At the same time, we see other people that get lost in the woods that are there for days, sometimes a couple of weeks before they're rescued. But then they come out of that situation. And yes, it was a difficult situation, but at the same time, if you ever listen to any of these interviews or talk to any of these people, they had that mindset that they were going to make it, that they knew what to do in that situation to get out of that situation. Okay, that is the key. It cannot be stressed enough that you have got to have the proper mindset to survive any situation that you could find yourself in. But guys, that's just a quick video that I wanted to do. That's a topic that I think needs to have a lot more focus compared to gear, compared to all this other stuff. Because as I'd mentioned earlier, mindset is the #1 tool in your toolbox to survive any situation that you're in. Guys, hope you liked the video. Be sure to go over to my website at boomsticktacticalgear.com. Check out all the cool merch that we got over there, all the cool gear that we got over there. But again, remember, mindset, that's your #1 tool right there. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel, share the video, and we'll see you next time.